If you've worked in cybersecurity, like many of our listeners have, you know that when you were growing up, you always dreamed of the big days where you could do the exciting work of assessments and GRC, making sure people are compliant with different frameworks and understanding risk and having contextualized understanding of how risk changes based on your organization. And also, you probably wanted to be an astronaut instead. However, as you get further into cybersecurity, it becomes real clear, real fast that compliance is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, when you are building a company, keeping a company safe, and so forth. And today, we have an excellent guest who can talk all about that and how AI is changing the game as well. Welcome to Legitimate Cybersecurity. My name is Frank. As always, I'm here with Dustin. And today we have Richa Kaul, who is the CEO and founder of Compliance, an AI native enterprise GRC platform redefining how compliance and risk workflows are executed. A former McKinsey engagement manager and chief strategy officer at Contract Pod AI, she has built her career at the intersection of strategy, technology, and enterprise transformation. Richa, thank you for coming and congratulations on the great news with all the fundraising. Why don't you tell us all about it and we'll kick things off from there.
Sounds good. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Dustin. Really excited to be here today. Goodness, it sounds so nice to hear your background all in one package. But I will say the most important thing about my background, I think, is that I'm such a data privacy nut. I am a
And have we questions for you? Please continue.
I- and I know obviously we do security compliance, but the reason I care so much about security compliance is actually about protecting the consumer. And we
Yeah.
really think about to protect consumer data. One of the most effective ways that I believe you can do that is helping secure the companies who hold the world's data. And so that is the mission that kind of keeps me going every day. And that's the why behind compliance with a why. So just wanted to share that. Of course, happy to talk about the news. Raised $20 million.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We just raised $20 million from Google Ventures.
Yeah.
And what's exciting about that, honestly, is seeing GV make a bet in the GRC space, a space that some people might think is not as sexy. I disagree. But, seeing, I think, one of the biggest names in technology kind of make that type of investment in the GRC space, I think really speaks to the future of security, risk, and compliance. And the fact that as AI grows and as, we use it every single day, we actually have more risk entering our environments, both personal and corporate. And it's about trying to understand how do you start to identify those risks, proactively manage them, and get ahead of the curve. And so that is really what compliance with the Y is all about.
I like your point there. I think it's encouraging to see that there are, these funds and these organizations and so forth that are actively investing in GRC. And for those of our listeners who are not familiar with the term GRC, it stands for governance, risk, and compliance. And basically it is what it sounds like. You will make governance documents that will help you determine your risk and make sure you stay compliant with requirements that your industry might have. But seeing that there's this effort to invest in these types of things are great. And the reason I feel that way is because I'm sure you've seen it too, Richa. Over the last several years, I feel like Archer has just been this hot potato that's been passed around the industry. It's getting sold, it's getting bought, it's getting sold, it's getting bought, it's getting sold, it's getting bought. And I can understand that because anyone who has any experience with the GRC tool Archer, it is not just a tool you can use. It is a tool you have to get a bunch of people into and make it almost their full-time job all the time. So seeing one, that there are organizations that are investing in, I'd say, cutting edge GRC, which is, I think, what you guys are really doing here. And two, that AI is being implemented in a way that can make it a bit less painless, right? Even if it's just a little less painless, we'll take it. It's really encouraging. And that kind of brings me to one of my first questions. As you're putting everything together at Compliance, was this a response to a specific sentiment? Like from our perspective, Dustin and I meet clients all the time in cyber. And there almost has this kind of sense that we get from some of them that compliance is broken, right? That there's too many moving parts, and sure, you have to say you do it and put some sort of effort to it, but it feels like there's just a constant vibe of negativity towards GRC in general, and the people who perform it. And as a result, it can be really hard to kind of, you know, do. Would you say in part what you guys are doing at Compliance kind of addresses that as well by making it a little less painful?
Yeah, I think we are trying to directly break down that premise, actually. So I think if we think about, you know, what is our goal for GRC teams? It's to redefine the way they have to do their work. And what does that mean? Who goes into GRC wanting to chase business owners for evidence? I can't think of a single person who I know, and I know hundreds,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
thousands of people who go into GRC. I mean, not a single person wants to do that. Who wants to chase risk owners to get the updates on whether or not their tasks from the last quarterly risk review have been updated? Not a
Right.
single person. I think that what people want to spend time on is the mission behind GRC, which is protecting the business and protecting the business's customers. And you can't do that right now because of all the manual work that's piling up. And that manual work is so urgent. It's because you have an audit. What are you going to do? Not do the work for the audit? Like, of course
Yeah.
you have to do. And so you have this like never ending to-do list. And at the bottom of it is all the stuff you actually want to focus on, but you've got to get through the first 30 things and they're always replenishing. And so how do you kind of offload those items to AI, the things that you don't want to do, offload them to AI, then the human beings in your business are engaging with you as a GRC professional on things that they realize matter. Like when you're going to the finance director and you're saying like, look, I need to understand the financial impacts of these various risks because like our business needs to make a decision about whether or not, we want to actually address these risks or if we're okay to live with the consequences. Inherent in that question is something the finance director cares about. Or if you're going to go to the CTO and say like, look, we need to talk about the actual potential vulnerabilities in this environment. Which ones matter? Which ones don't? That's a much more valuable conversation for both parties than you spending time saying, I really need someone on your team to send me a screenshot of the encryption control on our S3 buckets. Got to make sure it's on. It's like, I don't know. So, how do we take care of all that? Let's let people focus on what they want to do. And then GRC becomes not only less painful, but a lot more strategic. Does that
And
make sense, Frank?
effective. Yeah.
It does. It does make a lot of sense. And I think it's really interesting because you really hit a pain point there. At least in my experience, the thing that can make an assessment draw out the longest is just trying to get time with people, get on their calendars, make appointments. Because you're right. No one likes to chase anyone down, and you do the best you can and try to be as convenient as possible with them. And I think it's really interesting you know, as far as how you guys are explain the approach you take at compliance and where you put AI into kind of the equation there, because we've seen a lot of AI integration into everything these days, right? And it's everything from, organizations are actively feeding information to AI to try and actually create stuff that can give meaningful output to every you have those co-pilot integrations like an Outlook that just happened to sit on the side. I'm like, this is not reading anything. Just read my mail. Tell me what I need to read, right? Stuff like that. So how are you guys taking an approach with AI that is separating compliance from the rest of the pack and making everyone's life easier?
Great question, Frank. As a tech founder, it actually just upsets me how much AI has lost any meaning whatsoever. I go to companies' LinkedIn pages like legacy software, and now all of a sudden they've just added the words like, we are an AI powered
Yeah.
XYZ platform.
Exactly.
Are you? Are you
Right.
an AI powered marketing platform or whatever, enter word here. So thank you for asking. I think I think that first of all, when you see a truly AI powered system that works, it jumps out at you. And I really do. I will say that I'm going to share in a second, why our AI is actually successful. But I think it really jumps out at you because people can feel when AI is just a wrapper and it just feels like nothing, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes joke with the team internally. Is it actually worth the 3 gallons of water to run this AI problem? Like, think about that. Is it actually worth it? And if it's not, then maybe that should not be an AI feature. Just a thought.
I like how you said it was only 3 gallons of water. So it's very optimistic.
I don't. Let's not even talk about that. But I think the point trying to make is like it needs to be actually useful. Like just having AI features to say you have AI features, like we all know that's dumb. But let's take it a step further. Having AI features that deliver value that a customer can get with just like 1x more time, 2x more time, that is actually still not that useful. Like, I think we need to use AI to actually act as a force multiplier or do some other net new dimension increased. So, for example, more risk visibility. That's not reducing time. That is actually increasing something to a level that a human could never do. And so, what we do is that we think about always going back to like what do GRC teams actually do? So what we've done we have 5 modules in the platform that specifically mirror each sub function of the GRC team. So it's like controls management, which includes audit prep, risk management, third party risk management, policy management, and customer trust. And I say that because you've got to go back to the actual work. You can't just add in features through the product lens, right? It's like, okay, if you look at each of those categories, what do people actually do in risk management? What do they want to do? What are they spending time on today? And then you can start to break that down and say, okay, what can slash should AI do? What can slash should AI add in terms of capabilities that a human cannot do in line with the same goals? And now you've got a set of like actually useful AI features, and then you implement them. And you implement them with domain training, which we do a great job of actually. And you implement them in a secure way with guardrails built in so that someone can actually rely on it. So I hope that, and I know that sounds so simple, but I don't see that approach being applied in other AI tools, and it kills me.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the simplest, like elegant solutions can be simple, right? Or and most likely are simple, right? And but you brought up a really good point, and we've seen this in the industry so much. I was talking to Frank about this recently, where like RSA 2018, um, everything was MI,
The good
right?
old days.
RML. Everything had machine learning. Every product had machine learning. Everything was ML, capable. Now it's AI. It does feel like it's AI now. Now it does feel like everybody just puts a stamp on it and says, oh well, we attached an LLM to this, so now it's AI enabled, right? And that's a big part of it. But it sounds like what you're doing is you're actually you're probably training some kind of specific model around GRC to do these sub functions within a GRC team. So that's a huge part, and that's great to hear. One of the issues that I think, Frank's already touched on a few issues that we see with some of these assessments we do, and you touched on it a little bit. But one of the issues that we see for sure is when it comes down to protecting or even just looking at specific assets, is that you're trying to hunt down the business owner. Sometimes you can't find the business owner because you don't even know that the asset exists, because sometimes they don't even know that the asset exists. So that's a big thing that we kind of see on our end, right? Is like just kind of lack of those kind of basic steps. And so I guess my question is, does your platform kind of help with that? I guess in a sense it would, because it sounds like it offloads a lot of smaller functions off on somebody else. So you can actually go in and do the work that might need to be, like those little steps that kind of need to be done. But is there any help there for like asset management or management or user management or anything like that?
Well, maybe I can just reframe the question back
Sure.
to just to understand. So one of the things I heard in your question was around like completeness, right? It's like, how do you know that you're actually looking at the complete picture? And whether that's assets or whether that's databases or what, like whatever
Yeah.
you are talking about, like,
Yeah.
how do you know you're actually monitoring everything under the umbrella? Is that kind of the question?
Yes, that's the question. Thank you.
Okay. And it's just worth, because you mentioned asset management, so I want to just make sure that we're talking about that as a theme. Completeness is a theme. Like completeness and accuracy are pillars of what GRC teams aim for. But how do you not know what you don't know?
Right.
It's not possible, right? So
Yeah.
within the bounds of that, like how do you still operate, in a way that is complete and accurate? So I mean, again, I'm going to give a very tactical example in hopes that it helps to show how our AI actually works. So basically, when you think about security controls monitoring, right? I'm just going to use a very basic example. You are checking that your databases have encryption on. Let's just use a very basic example, right? And so from a current perspective, what happens today? If you need to check that your databases have encryption on, you need somebody with AWS access to go in, or Azure or GCP or whatever else is being used, to go in and actually do a check. And it's a point in time check. If you have a lot of databases, you're probably not going to check every one. You're going to do a sample. And then you report back and say like, yep, green light, it is what it is. Okay, great. That's kind of old school model.
Hmm.
More modern automated model is that you're going to integrate with your, let's just say, AWS environment. It's going to automatically check whether or not, encryption is on. And then it's going to say like, great, green light. It's a green light, red light system, but at least it's looking at everything that it's connected to. Okay. Now, what's the AI enabled version of that in our platform? Great. We're using the automation as the first block. Of course, you have to look at, what is this actually connected to? But then you can put in AI criteria that check for completeness and accuracy. So as an example, in our own environment, we monitor our own controls, and
Hmm.
we'll say like, And one of the AI criteria is saying, like, look, we operate in these regions. Make sure that there's AWS environments in the evidence that cover every single region. Like, are we actually, does the scope of this check actually include every region in which we operate? And then we'll say things like, make sure that the scope doesn't include demo environments or staging environments. We need to make sure these are production environments. And you start to get to if you write the right criteria, you can actually do a completeness check, which is unheard of today. And I know that's just one basic example of one very specific control, but
No, that's
I hope
good though. Yeah.
to explain, like,
Yeah.
that's how you use AI to do completeness and accuracy checks beyond just your red light, green light signals. And that's like qualitative. That's the power of it.
And I think, and I'm glad you broke it down like that, because I think in cybersecurity, people get so lost in the sauce sometimes, because when we are talking about infrastructure, it can get incredibly convoluted incredibly quickly, right?
Mhm.
But when you break it down into simpler parts like that, it's much easier, I feel like, for people to understand, at least people who are, might have come up on the technical side of things, to kind of understand like how that kind of stuff works. So I really do appreciate the framing you put on that. So thank you.
When do you, sorry, because you answered a lot of good questions there, and I think it really does help pretty dramatically. Do you think these types of capabilities that you guys are developing, what's that then going to do to compliance? Like, what are these GRC assessments? What are audits and so forth going to look like, say, 5 and then 10 years from now? I ask because I'll take any help I can get, and I know Dustin and will too. And making them as painless as possible and making them as approachable as possible. Do you think that this will make the whole process in general more accepted? Do you think that, like, in 5 or 10 years, we'll have AI that's capable of monitoring things so well in real time that it can, you know, basically attest and provide evidence immediately? Like, what do you think this is going to look like?
It's such a tricky question because I think
Yeah, sorry, it's not really a fair question either. Don't worry, we won't come back 5 years from now and be like, "You were wrong, Richa."
do. Please do. I would appreciate the accountability. I think that to be honest with you, the reason I think it's a tricky question is because I think it kind of goes into a very sensitive topic in GRC right now, which is kind of the
Tell me more.
balance and the independence of auditors versus GRC tools. And I am far too deep in this topic because I care about this a lot. And to me, I think that there is, well, a lot of GRC tech CEOs, I've heard them talk about it, and they think that audits should go away, or that they have the power for audits to go away because they can do autonomous and automatic, kind of like attestations of controls. I don't think that that is in the spirit of actual compliance, actually. I
Hmm.
think that the whole point is that the tech itself is not supposed to be the auditor. I believe that the auditor needs to be in place because otherwise the incentives are out of whack. Like if you think about, and of course, yes, an auditor is a vendor. I understand that. But if you think about it, a GRC tool has very different financial incentives than an auditor does. And a GRC
100%.
tool I mean, you're literally incentivized. A GRC tool wants to show well, right? If like in a world where it's being used for continuous attestation, right now we are allowed to, mm, show all the problems. Like I actually like when clients come to us and they're like, oh my God, I can see all my problems now. I'm like, yes, that's the point. Because this is helping you do a pre-audit check or do a continuous monitoring check. But I think those incentives change. I think we're getting into really dicey territory if that happens. I think we're already in dicey territory. So to go back to your question, what is the future? I think 5 years from now, what I believe 1 year from now, our platform can deliver is that GRC teams spend literally zero time on audit prep. There is no need for them to do audit prep. I believe auditors should still be in the mix doing an completely and like external independent assessment of an organization's security program, their security posture, their controls. But no one has to spend the time going in and prepping all the evidence for it or even answering sample requests. You don't have to do any of that because the platform should just be able to generate that. And if something's wrong, they can check with the human and say, like, look, I don't know what's going on here. Do you want to check this before it goes to the auditor? But if you're basically having this testing happening, the auditor still checking, and the GRC team focus on actual risk reduction, I think, first of all, better reputation for GRC, but it's also just a better answer. I think it keeps companies safer.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I think it provides also a future for auditors and assessors. And I say that kind of I don't know, leerily in that regard, because I find that if I put a jaded lens on
Mhm.
and I look at the auditor role in general, especially with not all auditors, but some auditors I've met, it is very rife with gatekeeping and unnecessary requirements like, oh, you can't audit because you didn't go to the audit school of super audit or something like that. Or there seem to be a lot of artificial roadblocks in place to gatekeep an industry and protect it from innovation overtaking jobs and such. And I think one example of the struggle there is take a look at, CMMC, right? CMMC is a good idea that has taken this long to even get out the gate, right? And there's a lot of fingers in the pie. There's a lot of, chefs in the kitchen with that one. And as I watched it being developed, this is just Frank's hot take. It felt more like the emphasis was stronger on designating people, making sure the right people were able to perform them, and making sure they paid the right organizations the right amount of money to have them done, over actually trying to protect confidential, unclassified information. It seemed like the lens was backwards, and I personally believe that's why it took so long to get to where it is. And as a result, there's not much confidence in it. Just, I think in the industry overall, it's good that it's there, but the confidence is growing, and it's growing slower in a lot of other ways. So I'm hoping that, tools and companies such as yourselves will help show organizations and individuals, yes, there is still a future, and you don't have to be as protectionist, I guess. It's like I don't know if this is a hot topic, but it's like slapping 100% tariffs on Chinese EV cars because they're a threat to the auto industry. Like, I don't think that's the way you address this. That just makes the problem longer and harder, kind of thing. So I like your answer in that regard, because showing that it's an enhancement tool and it'll help you'll still have these roles moving forward. It'll just make it smoother. I think it's a really good thing to try to aspire towards, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And you brought up a really good point too about the technology itself being like, we saw this with blockchain, man, like 2020, maybe 2018 to 2020. I keep going back to 2018 for some reason, but like when blockchain technology was first kind of catching on, people were like, oh, you don't have to, it audits itself. You don't have to do any audits. It's just like, it's a self auditing tool. It's just like, and it's like, yeah, try to sell that to somebody as a self auditing tool and see if they're going to trust, you know, a piece of technology to be self auditing or whatever. And I know that, from a C-suite perspective, that sounds awesome. It's like, oh, great. We don't have to, this is all stuff we can offload to AI or all stuff we can offload to the technology itself. We don't need personnel to do this. But you bring up a really good point, which is like the whole point of auditing, and the whole point is that you have a third party come in to make sure that the checks that you currently have are correct and in place or exist at all, and that you are checking all of those things. So I love that you brought that up, because it's once again, it seems like history is kind of repeating itself here with AI a little bit. And I'm gonna just go ahead and take a stab in the dark here and say this probably happens with every technology, really, any kind of new technology that comes out. It's one of those things where we all get you see the Gartner like hype cycles and everything. We all get super excited about it, and then there's like a consolidation, and then there's a few winners at the very end who actually were implementing something that was meaningful.
Top right quadrant,
Yeah, there
right?
you go. There you
Everyone
go.
get top to the right, top of the right.
But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Frank.
No, sorry, tangential, but also there.
Yeah.
As we're discussing this, one of the struggles I've seen everyone struggle with is, and I'm really hoping Richard, please fix this. Please put this out there. Whoever figures out the solution to this and can make lives easier for all these analysts and assessors, they should be that's worth a prize. Third party risk management, right? And I'm going to include insurance in this too.
Mm-hmm.
All the questionnaires, all the different questionnaires, all the questionnaires asking the same thing, but just different enough to give you a nightmare all day, every day. How do you, you had mentioned that you guys do a little bit of TPRM and so forth, right?
Indeed. Yes.
How, did you fix it? Or like,
Frank, I think we need to do a demo after this. First of all, TPRM is my favorite module, my favorite topic area. I know that seems very strange, but I love it. Why do I love it? Because it is one of the most linear flows that you have in GRC, and it makes it so much easier to automate it and help TPRM analysts stop doing the work that they hate doing and start doing actual third-party risk management, not questionnaire sending and receiving management, which is currently what's happening.
It's rough. I feel for them.
I feel for them.
They smile, but you can see it in the eyes,
I
right?
They are the best of us. I will
Yeah,
just say that. Yeah. But they don't want to spend their time sending questionnaires and chasing responses. Ideally, they're spending their time actually looking at the vendor risks that are presented to them by AI, by the way, both objectively and via, questionnaire responses or the vendor's trust portal information or their SOC 2 report. And ideally, they're getting all the information teed up for them. And they reallocate the time that they were previously spending on all of that other manual stuff to being able to decide and reach out to the vendor and have a conversation. Like, look, you guys are kind of above our risk thresholds on these three areas. What are you guys doing about it? Why is this okay for you? How can I make sure that that's not going to affect my business and our
right.
customers' data?
Present undue risk to them.
Exactly. Like, and maybe you're flagging something to them. What a productive conversation that would be over and above, my God, like shit, my business needs me. Like the business owner is mad at me because
Yeah.
I'm holding up the process of closing this contract that they need because I'm just trying to do an assessment and the person's not answering the questionnaire. And when they do answer, it's in my backlog of questionnaires to review.
Mhm.
No one wants that. No one wants that model. And it also starts to give like GRC teams a not a bad rep, but they become a blocker in the business instead of being an actual thought partner, an enabler, a strategic input at the table. And so I just think we've really like it just sounds so nice when I'm saying it, but it's so real. And I mean, we are I can't tell you like I feel like I wish that people could see the agents that we have right now. They incredible. And they can actually do this work in a way that unblocks the GRC teams. And I want to like scream it from the rooftops and just, let everybody have access to it so we can all just change the way that we work. I think the world will be safer.
I like the zeal you have to this because it's something we don't really see very often, and I do appreciate it. Well, one, it's authentic and it's nice, but I want to ask you
You
because
don't
this is
love
something I
it.
talk to. I know a few people who have worked in audits and assessments their whole career. I had no idea this existed. At no point was like young Frank being like, ah, yes, and then someday perhaps I'll consider IT audit. Like, I didn't think that was a thing. Like, so I want to ask you, it's very clear that you have a love of this. How did that happen? Like, tell us how did you go? Because if I'm recalling correctly, you were at McKinsey at one point and you moved through a couple different places. And like, did you always know you wanted to do this type of stuff and start a company like this? How did this happen?
It's funny you ask. It's really why I introduce myself as a data privacy nut and I forget all of the nice roles that I've had before. I common thread is that I really do not like when businesses or governments or anyone has more of my data than they actually need. I don't understand why they need it. I'm like, this is my data.
Fair.
It's about me. This is my personal information. I know that living in the world we're living in 2026, that's not possible. I can't live under a rock and keep my data completely secure to me. But what I hope is that when I trust a company with my data, that they treat it right and that they're able to keep it secure. And I don't think that it's possible to scale that at an individual level. I think you have to start working with the companies who actually hold so much consumer data and help them make basically stay secure. And
Mhm.
that is what makes me so excited about it. It's like it's
Was
not
there a specific incident or instance that like you maybe lost that data that made you go, no, this does not stand. This is my life's calling now.
it's funny that you say incident. I'm sure we can all remember the Equifax breach that
Yeah,
happened.
of course.
Now it was years ago. One of my best friends had his identity stolen and had a lot of really big issues that happened to him because of that, including financially. And it was just the beginning of the fire in me, I think. Start to say like, well, why did that happen? And how can we make sure that it doesn't happen again? And I don't want to breach shame. Like I understand that companies, I'm not saying that
I
it's
love that phrase, and I have not heard it yet. Breach shame.
trademark Richa, by the way.
Yeah,
There you
right
go.
Um,
there.
There you go. I don't wanna breach him, I really don't. Like, I don't think it's realistic to say like, "Oh my god, no one is ever gonna have a data breach." Not at all, especially now. It's going to happen. I think but like, how are you prepared to at least limit the repercussions of it? How do you lessen the probability that it's going to happen? It's by monitoring controls. It's by honestly training people, and you don't have time to train people unless you're, again, first 30 items on your to-do list that are manual are removed. And all of a sudden you can engage people and tell them, like, what does a security culture mean in our organization? This is what it means. That always goes to the bottom of the to-do list when you have an audit to perform, right? It's like, so I mean, to me, it's all very philosophically the same point. It's like, how do you protect consumer data? You've got to get to the heart of it and do the things that actually enable it to happen, and not just, not just, I don't know, just try to solve the more honestly minimum problems of, like, how do I make sure that XYZ company could do their audit faster? Well, what's the end goal that you're working towards? And then I think that powers a lot more innovative thinking from a product perspective than you can get by, you know, think small. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I think. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to say, like, I do love how you brought up that this is, and I think this is something that we try to do, Frank. Maybe we don't get this message across that where Richard just totally nailed it, which is like we try to raise above the noise of like the business itself, right? And maybe what's going on within the business to get to the point to where what we really do care about here is actually defense and protection of data, right? Of consumers, of people in general. And I feel like because we are all technologists, we sometimes get lost in the technology sauce where it's like we
100%.
we forget about the end user and we forget about those things. But I love how you put that, Richa, and I just wanted to point that out that was great.
Thank you. I really like, everyone asks me, oh my God, it's so embarrassing when clients are like, why'd you guys spell compliance that way? Like, why does it have a Y in it? Is that just because the
I
URL was,
like it.
I was
Yeah.
like, no, it's because compliance with a Y. Like, it has a reason for it, right? Like, we
Yeah.
always think about the reason that we're doing compliance. It's not checking boxes. It's like, what is the point of it? It means something. It stands for something. And yeah, if I'm passionate, like, I think that's because it's always at the top of my mind. What does it actually mean?
Something that I'm interested in, and this is a little specific, but I'm trying to think also from a end user's perspective, especially when you have to attest in a lot of these cases, right? A lot of these are self attestations, so your career and your reputation's on the line. How do you make people comfortable with the AI integration when things like hallucinations exist, right? Because I've caught a few hallucinations. Oh, what was it? There was, one of the big four. Was it Deloitte, I think? Got in a lot of hot water because one of their assessors,
Yeah.
yeah, right?
I
One
remember
of their
this.
assessors, I
Yeah.
don't know if it was a cyber assessment or something, but they did a whole report and it was basically all written by AI. They found this out months after the company had received it. It was full of AI and hallucinations and stuff like that. It was a real kind of a bit of a black eye, right? So, how do you handle those types of questions when people are concerned about hallucinations? And of course, it's at the end of the day, everyone should check their work, right? So you could argue it's on the user of the AI to make sure that it's correct, but how do you make people comfortable with that?
I mean, of course, it's partly on the user of the AI, but I think if you're a GRC tech platform or really any vertical AI solution, you've got to take some responsibility in the game as well. And so
Agreed.
I think you have to solve it at the structural level. So I would say I'm proud, but I think I expect this of us. So I'm not sure that I'm proud that we haven't had a single client tell us that we've had hallucinations in the platform. Not a single client that we have deployed AI
That would
for.
either make me very happy or incredibly concerned.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I tell you why it makes me very happy and not incredibly concerned.
Okay, good.
Is that, first of all, we support Fortune 500 clients with our AI. This is not, being used at small scale. This is being used at huge scales. And if we're going to allow our AI to be used at scales with Fortune 500 companies for their risk and compliance, we got to make sure that it works well. We got to make sure it's structurally high integrity. And so what have we actually done? So one of the most important things is tight inputs and tight outputs. And I know that sounds so basic, but that's my layman's term version of it. Like, if you're using an agent to do largely generative work that basically has a huge scope, right? Like, if you're saying, write this report and use all of this context to do it, there's a lot of scope for hallucination. I think we all can just understand that. There's so much like, ambiguity in that. If you have domain trained AI that's being used for discrete inputs and discrete outputs, what that lends itself to is such a tight context window, and we can put guardrails to limit the AI's outputs to the context window. And the AI outputs are so specifically designed. It's like you are answering this exact problem based on this exact context. The agent, and that's why we have, by the way, we've over 30 agents we're deploying this year, and we do it agent by agent because of this. Because it has, we're not doing an agent for risk management. We're doing an agent for risk treatment planning. We're doing an agent for risk details and quantification,
Nice.
right? It's like,
Nice.
if it's so tight, almost like how to
The
hallucinate, it doesn't
guardrails are
know
so
anything.
tight. Yeah.
It literally, we limit the context. It doesn't know anything else. It only knows that world. And it knows the knowledge base that we inject into it. And so now you start to see, like, why do I feel so confident? What can it hallucinate? Like, we've tested it, obviously. We're like, let's try to break this. It doesn't, there's no scope. Like, it doesn't know enough to break, if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
It's artificial, it's stupid artificial intelligence. That's like very, very specific.
Well, that's a good way to handle hallucinations. And one thing I can tell you we didn't hallucinate was that great answer and this great discussion. We've got one more question for you before we tie things up here. Does compliance use compliance to ensure compliance
Of
for
course.
itself?
Of course. You got to eat your own dog food.
There you go. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Richa, for coming on. Everyone, Richa Kaul, again, the CEO and founder of Compliance. We love what you're doing. We think it's great. Thank you so much. Dustin, why don't you do the honors and introduce her to our not really catchphrase or apparently official one, because no one will give us one to use.
This is our official, non-official catchphrase, and it's keep on cyberin.
Yeah. Till next week, everyone. Keep on cyberin.